Highlands Ranch is a historic name. It was coined by prior owners, and that name is one of many that we evaluated for branding the community. This is a property that had already been called Highlands Ranch, that was known as Highlands Ranch, and we wanted to continue that tradition on into the future. Highlands Ranch is 22,000 acres in size. That's roughly 34 square miles of land. When planned, we were fortunate enough to be able to preserve not only the history of the area, but vast open spaces totaling 61% of the total property. Within the open space areas, we find the archaeological sites that have been identified and the historic structures that have been preserved or stabilized or protected for future generations. Typically, our communities are designed as new towns where people are moving to. It's very important to have a sense of the character of the past as we look towards the future of a new community. In 1978, we began the planning for Highlands Ranch, and this planning incorporated historical elements as we developed the plan over a period of 2 years. Initially, in developing an understanding of the history of Highlands Ranch, we hired a consultant to evaluate and research all available records relative to the property. Part of the historical elements that we identified are within the Highlands Ranch property itself, the Highlands Ranch Mansion, which on this exhibit is showed as Springer's Cross Country Ranch, Griggs Ranch, which is a homestead now encompassing in the open space conservation area of the community, and the Douglas Pasture Ranch, an additional homestead within the community. To the south of Highlands Ranch, we have Cherokee Ranch, which is a historic and open space amenity in Douglas County. As we looked at the history of these areas, we also translated that into the plan for Highlands Ranch by not only preserving the areas of those historic structures and features, but creating areas around that we could use for interpretation of those historical elements. So, for example, the Highlands Ranch Mansion, which is located here, has a 1,000-foot buffer surrounding that area within which no urban development will occur. This allows for the residents of Highlands Ranch to forever enjoy the history and the character of the land that existed before they moved into this new community. We have also named various features within the community with historic names. John Welty was a rancher. He had a homestead and involved cheese manufacturing. And John Welty's Cheese Ranch is a property that's now been identified as a historic park. There are interpretive displays at this park showing the history of the area and what John Welty did on this property. Highlands Ranch has been named other things, including Springer Ranch, Kistler Ranch, Diamond K, etc. Frank Kistler and his ranch is represented by Kistler Park, and we have not only a park but also a road named after John Springer. And there is homage to Colonel Marcy in the design and character of not only the features but some interpretive information at that park. James Michener in his book Centennial identified a fictional ranch called Veniford Ranch. We are told that Mr. Michener in his research of his book led him to utilize the Highlands Ranch Mansion as his thematic approach to the Veniford Ranch itself. And the mansion itself was utilized when television brought the miniseries of the book Centennial to the screen. While I was in graduate school, I was fortunate to work for Mission Viejo Company and to apply some of the ideas that I've learned in the classroom in the real world. Design with Nature is a book written by Scottish planner Ian McHarg in the 1970s. Mr. McHarg developed a program by which planning through environmental means can result in a community that responds to the land. Another way of saying that is we listen to the land as we develop. Design with Nature speaks to a process by which we identify specific characteristics of the land, both man-made and natural, and overlay those on a light table to identify areas that are conducive to development. Specifically, we utilize an exhibit of historic features of Highlands Ranch, the agricultural resources, including archaeological sites. An exhibit depicting topography, the natural landform of the property, which is very important to preserve specific significant natural features. An exhibit of the vegetation and wildlife, habitat movement and wildlife movement areas. We also look at the soil conditions to look at areas that might be suitable for continued agriculture. Now, Highlands Ranch historically has been a cattle ranch, and that tradition continues today. And the geologic features, which include specific characteristics of the land, like the Wildcat Mountain area, where the steep slopes translate into areas of potential rockfall hazard, certainly areas we would want to avoid. And we also studied the natural drainages, which include floodplains and areas susceptible to flooding. So typically what we do is overlay each one of those in kind to identify those areas where the light comes through, where there are no constraints to development, and would be most suitable. The planning process has been refined over time. As we develop new areas, we continue to use these overlays to improve upon the plan that we developed 20 years ago. In the 1970s, it was a relatively new concept, a new approach. It is an integral part today of many of the master plans of communities around the nation. We are working with the Highlands Ranch Historical Society, Douglas County Historic Preservation Board, and others to try and collect additional information about the history of Highlands Ranch and utilize that in our planning and utilize that in naming of streets and parks and other facilities within the community. We're working with representatives of the Highlands Ranch Metropolitan District to review a proposal they have for the rehabilitation and restoration and operation of the mansion to protect the history into the future. Shea Homes and its parent company, J.F. Shea, is a 120-year-old company with enduring quality in terms of its construction and creation of communities and major public facilities. Some of those facilities include the Golden Gate Bridge, the Hoover Dam, and tunneling under the San Francisco Bay for BART, the Metro in Boston, as well as in Washington, D.C. Most notably in Colorado, they've also developed the reverse curve tunnel through Glenwood Canyon. I feel very privileged to be a part of creating a new community from its initial planning phase in 1978 to its current status of over 72,000 people. It's very gratifying to me, and it's also very personal because it is a community that I have lived in for 20 years and am currently raising my family. I have 2 children that go to school here, so I'm able to realize my own dreams in this community as a direct result of the efforts of myself and the team of planners and engineers that have created the community that we're so proud of.